Quilty is brought to you by
Baby Lock. Baby Lock sewing and long arm machines. From piecing to long arming for the love of sewing. Aurifil. Aurifil Italian thread. Perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Dear Stella. A unique fabric brand with modern style. Fairfield. Together, we can make beautiful things. Hovels Sewing. Cut to the point with Hovels Sewing. Moda. Make something quilty with Moda fabrics. Northcott. Cottons that feel like silk. Omnigrid. Providing quilters with specialty rulers and accessories for over 30 years. Thanks for watching Quilty. This week I have two guests on the show, the Tiara and Linda Rainwater. Hey, Linda.
Hey, Mary. Good to see you.
I'm so glad you're here. Could you tell the people a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. Well, I'm the training manager for Baby Lock, and what I really like to do most about my job is teaching people how to use our product the right way.
Yes, right. Because sometimes we skip the instruction manual, but you shouldn't because Linda does great video and she talks to anybody and can talk to anybody about how to use these machines. But the instruction manual for your stuff, it's got a lot of good information in there, not just how to thread the machine, but also decorative stitches and how to make the most out of your machines. And we like Baby Lock around here. So tell me about what the Tiara is for people who may have never seen one.
Absolutely. Well, the Tiara is a great machine if you want to be able to finish off your quilts, but you really don't have space for a long arm quilting machine, which basically means you don't have space to put this big 10-foot or 5-foot long machine that is going to finish your quilts in your house. And so the Tiara is a sit-down machine, and we call it a midarm because it's not as long as the longest arms. But what's so nice about it, as you can see, is that the part of the machine that's facing me is traditionally what's to your left. And so it gives you lots of room to be able to maneuver and quilt your quilts. And so it's like utter quilting freedom.
Totally, and it's really, really fun if you ever get the chance to practice on one. It kind of sells itself.
Right.
But the apron, that's called the apron, right, of the machine?
Yeah, I guess you could call it the apron. I mean, I don't know. It's the table.
Yeah,
it's the big
table.
surface. But you know what? People call things different things.
And there's
Aprons,
tons of room.
right, tons of room.
Right. So the question I have for you today, the bulk of the show, is to show people how to get started. Because honestly, once you get started, you really go to town. But there's those first few steps, you want to see them. You want to see them up close. So take us through it.
All right, so one of the most important parts about the Tiara is threading the machine. And so two things I want to say about that. Number one is that because on a traditional sewing machine you have a presser foot lifter on the back of it, and that's what allows you to release the tension to thread it. Now on the Tiara there is no presser foot lifter because the machine's always ready to do free motion quilting. So you have to thread it, and you have to really intentionally put the thread into the tension disc. So that's number one. And the second thing I would tell you is that this right here, this little bobbin, well, this is key to being able to get perfect tension on the machine. And so can I talk to you about this right now?
Go for it.
Okay, so this is an M-class bobbin, which basically means that it is a very large bobbin, and so you have the same amount of thread on this that you would traditionally have on a long arm machine. And when you put the thread into the bobbin case, the most important part is getting correct tension. And so I'm going to show you really quickly how you can do that.
Please,
all right?
yeah, it's awesome.
So I have my little screwdriver, which comes with the machine, and there is one big screw on here, and that's the one that you can either do righty-tighty or lefty-loosey. And in order to be able to check to see if it's right, and I've already calibrated mine well, I'm going to just wrap some thread around a finger and lay it in my hand. And when I lay it in my hand and lift up, what's supposed to happen is that bobbin is supposed to stay in my hand but stand up and never lift, and I can lift my thread up. And that's pretty easy, isn't it?
It's totally cool.
It's a good tell.
Will you loosen it a little bit and show what happens when it's not quite right?
Sure. Let me do this. Let me first make it a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
And small movements. That's all you need are small movements. So I'm going to do a little bit of a quarter turn. And now when I have this and I'm lifting it, watch. It just lifts out of my hand. And now if I make it too loose.
I have a Tiara, and I'm telling you, very small adjustments make a big difference.
If I make it too loose, so I did this one half of a turn, what'll happen is, as I try to lift this up, the bobbin, it's spinning, it's barely lifting. So perfect little match is when you get it just right, and what it'll do is it'll lift up, but it won't come out of my hand. So
perfect. Cool. And so then you place the bobbin.
Then you place the bobbin in the machine, and so I'm just going to just tuck it down under here.
we've got
Don't look.
Don't look. This is the backstage part.
Right, backstage.
We've got a little baby quilt ready to quilt. You could certainly spray baste your, especially for a small quilt like this. Some people spray baste huge quilts, but a baby quilt like this could be spray basted to make your quilt sandwich, or you could also pin baste, which is what I did on a section of this. But this particularly for the tiara, a baby quilt, you can just pop it through, so easy.
Knock it out quickly.
Yes,
Right.
knock it out quickly.
All right, so
Okay.
should we talk about threading
Please
here?
do, yeah.
Okay, so on the threading of the machine, I'm going to start with my thread cone over here, and I'm going to bring it and just drop it over the top of this thread mast. And then
Go
I'm
real
just going to
slow so the
follow.
camera can- yeah,
Right. I'm just going to follow along with clicking it up here. And now what you have is this piece which has 3 holes. Now traditionally, I'm going to put it in each one of these holes.
Curving around.
Curving around.
The
So,
outside.
yes, I'm always going from the back to the front on each one. So it does a little bit of a loop-de-doo here.
And you know, in the manual, it shows this step by step with
Right.
pictures, so you can always see it.
Right. And so then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click it in over here.
Okay.
And this is the part where it's important to take my thread, and I'm going to bring it through my 2 tension discs. And when I bring it up through here,
You got to get it through the
I've
right
got to get it through.
ones.
Okay, and what I'm going to do is what I call flossing it. So that's when you intentionally take your thread and you're going to bring it snugly up inside. And then I'm just going to take it through this little circle.
Always from back to front.
Right.
Sort of the rule.
And so one of the things that I think is a good thing for people to know is that the last guide before you go into the needle pretty much tells you where the flat side of the needle is going to go. So because my last hole is here in front of me, the flat side of the needle goes towards the back. And so I'm going to tuck it down here.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put the thread through the little eye. So can I give you my favorite tip?
Please.
So somebody once told me the best way to get the thread to go through the needle is to lick behind the needle, and I thought, that sounds dangerous. But what she meant was do this, okay? And then touch it here, and what it does is it pulls the thread through.
Oh, it really does.
It really does pull the thread through.
I would also think you have to get your face under the. Not good. Not good.
Don't get your face, no. I was like, lick behind the needle.
Oh,
I never thought that it was that dangerous.
good.
But yes, there you go.
Wow. And then you take one stitch, right?
Right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have my needle go down and then back up again. And once I've done that, I'm going to coax up my bobbin thread so that I have both of those pieces in my hand at the same time.
Great.
Okay?
Ready to start.
Ready to start. So let's go ahead and just kind of do it in a little bit of an area over here. So I'm going to bring my needle down and then back up again. I'm going to pull my thread up, and this is where you can actually do a little bit of sample stitching. And so you want to lock the thread when you get started. And so locking it basically means I'm going to take a couple stitches in place. Now I've got my machine stopping with the needle down. Okay? And so now I can take my threads. I'm just going to cut them here. And then now what I can do is I can start sewing. I'm just kind of testing my thread tension, which is really important to do.
Getting warmed up on the outside of the
Right.
quilt.
And so now you can look and see my tension is perfect. That's the most important part, right?
great.
Because you want it to look good when you're done. I mean, you don't want to have it look really great on top and then have the bottom be bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? And then, should I show you how to finish off before we get started here? I'll show you how you
Yeah,
finish off your
finish off.
stitching. Okay. So if I was completely done with my stitching, what I would do is I would take my thread and I would bring my needle up and I would pull the thread over to the side so that I have a little bit of excess thread. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle back down and then up again. And now what I can do is I can cut those 2 threads off right here at the top. And so it's locked and finished.
And then bury your thread a little
And
bit.
that's
if you
how
want.
it's buried. It's buried just like that. So that's how to do it all by machine. And so now all you have to do is get started right and end right, and you can do your whole quilt. And with the ability to be able to use such a large cone of thread, most of the time you won't even have to stop until you're done.
Probably not. Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome, Mary.
Get started on a tiara. You will love it.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Quilty is brought to you by
Baby Lock. Baby Lock sewing and long arm machines. From piecing to long arming for the love of sewing. Aurifil. Aurifil Italian thread. Perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Dear Stella. A unique fabric brand with modern style. Fairfield. Together, we can make beautiful things. Hovels Sewing. Cut to the point with Hovels Sewing. Moda. Make something quilty with Moda fabrics. Northcott. cottons that feel like silk. OmniGrid, providing quilters with specialty rulers and accessories for over 30 years.